Welcome to the 47th episode of Impact Media Presents Black Men on Love, Dating, Sex, and Relationships. I am Kelly Redmond, your host and Executive Director of Impact Media and Entertainment Coalition, a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles. Today's topic is Viewer's Choice. In response to your poll, we are providing Black men who are experts on love, sex, and relationships across the country. We heard you, we responded, and we are pleased to introduce some leading male voices from across the country. And you can find them on Clubhouse in various rooms, Real Black Love being one. So I'd like to begin to introduce you to Steve Robinson, Vance Andrews, Vance Taylor, and Lamonte Roberson.
Hello.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. How are you today?
Good evening. Good evening. Outstanding.
Yeah, doing well. Hope you are too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned in the introduction, this has been a topic that's been requested for a few months now. And I'm really glad to be able to respond to the viewers and give them, especially those who do not have iPhones and are not able to hear you on Clubhouse. So this is a real treat for me as well as our viewing audience on YouTube and Facebook. So thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to start by each of you, giving a really quick intro and your background. So I tell you what, let's start with Steve.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Robinson. I'm born and raised in South LA, South Central to be specific. I'm currently a dean of students at a high-performing charter school here in Los Angeles called Libertas College Prep, and that ranges from grades 4th through 8th grade. I have been doing so for the past 5 years. Also, I'm currently writing a fiction novel entitled To Love, Love. It hasn't surfaced yet, but it will. I'm looking forward to getting that novel out at high schools, middle schools. Definitely not closed off to the other possibilities, but that's where I'm going to be focused majority on. And that's it. I'm looking forward to tonight, looking forward to the questions, and looking forward to hearing from my good brothers as well.
Thank you so much, Steve. Oh, let's hear from you.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Lamonte Roberson. I am a trained mental health professional. I have been trained in a series of modalities to help individuals struggling and facing severe and persistent mental illness. I am also the published author of one book entitled Love Nuggets. It is a 31-day journey for singles and couples alike, and it really is designed to help couples navigate the ups and downs of relationship and talk with their significant other and the people in their community about the various important topics that are related to love and relationship. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and you can find me on social media at OLR Speaks. That's the @ symbol, OLR Speaks. If you're on Clubhouse, you can find me there. You can also find me on Instagram at those locations.
Thank you so much. Vance, tell us about yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening. Vance Andre here. I am originally from Newcastle, Delaware, but I currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am a certified life coach with a specialization in relationships. I am a co-host of a podcast called Between Love and Hate, where we talk all about relationships, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. I also have my own coaching business called Advance to Grow Coaching. So I help people find healthy, balanced, and fulfilling relationships. Super happy to be here. I love this topic. I'm very passionate about relationships and life as well. And you can find me through inspirational posts on all my social medias at Advance to Grow. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much, gentlemen. Vance, let's go back to you. Let's tell the viewing audience your why. Why are you doing this work? Why is this important to you?
For me growing up, I used to watch The Cosby Show. I think that's a classic, right?
Yes.
And you see Claire and Cliff and how they interacted and that Black love that was there. And then Martin and Gina, they were in a relationship as well, right? And it's the good, it's the bad. But for me, it was the commitment. It was the fight. It was the love that they showed for each other, despite whatever was going on. I think over time, Black love has gotten beaten up, whether it's our own people bashing men, bashing women, whether it's the media kind of portraying us in certain lights. I want to change that narrative. I want to say,
absolutely,
we're not the only people that go through situations. It's really those folks that can be committed, that have patience, and that really want to work it out. Anything's possible. So as long as we are on the same pages, then let's make it happen. So my job, my passion is to really help inspire people to learn, men about women and women about men, so that we can come together and be like we used to be back in the day.
I love that. And thank you so much for bringing and uplifting the Cosby Show, because the Cosby Show, A Different World, and many others, like you said, from back in the day, really have been the inspiration behind Impact Media. It's so important that we have content like that reflects us in a way that is not in alignment with the negative stereotypes. We need to, like you said, change the narrative around how we're portrayed and ensure that we're telling our true stories and showing more of a positive reflection of who we are. So thank you for that. So we'll go to Steve next, and then when he comes back.
Yeah, my why is simple. It's similar to Vance, very similar, but I do want to kind of put a different perspective on it. I think that being able to acknowledge our shortcomings is what's going to allow us to be able to acknowledge when we do start to see successful Black love, and we're starting to see it now, and it's very inspiring. My why is really centered around being able to be vulnerable and showing men what that looks like. Not young men, but men in general. Showing men what that looks like. Showing how to heal. You can either heal in public, you can heal to yourself. But I think healing is what my focus is, really. Not just for myself, but for my brothers as well, my Black brothers as well. Let me be specific.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Tell us your why.
So my why for love and relationship is really centered around my own loss, my own devastation. In 2011, I suffered the loss of a relationship that was extremely, extremely hard for me. And during my time of prayer and meditation, I discovered that I could take the lemons from my own experience and allow those lemons to be lemonade for someone else. And in doing so, I made the decision to go back to school, study mental health, and focus my passions and my attention in areas related to love and relationship, particularly among Black and Brown populations. It's been a unique journey, but part of the reason why I did it is because I really believe that each of our life's experiences are really designed to impact and empower the lives of other people. And so that's why I do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I typically ask one of the standard questions, because I launched this live stream during the pandemic. And so one of the questions I would ask is, how have you been creative in quarantine? But I want to flip that with you guys. I want you to share, because you talk to hundreds, probably thousands of people, men and women, singles, married couples, all these different types of relationships and situationships that exist these days. I've heard a few on Clubhouse. But how would you say people have been creative as it relates to dating and relationships in quarantine?
Sure.
Anyone can go.
Okay.
I'll answer that question. I think that people have become very creative in dating relationships over the last couple of years, but particularly in the last year, individuals have sought online spaces as a primary way to meet people and to connect with them. So Black and Brown people specifically, Black and Brown people specifically are downloading apps, they're joining dating websites, and they're taking part in social media options that allow them to connect with people. So for example, on Clubhouse, a number of people are entering these spaces in these rooms called Shoot Your Shot. And it's a space where men and women are reading each other's bios, asking a few questions about them, and then asking them if it's okay if they slide in their DMs.
Yes.
And then on the opposite side of that, I think people are falling in love with themselves again. And I know that sounds like rudimentary, but I think that this space has allowed for people to spend a lot more time with themselves as individuals. And then if they begin to internalize who they are as individuals, they're then able to branch off and to O's point, be able to seek out that love and affection from certain social media platforms, such as Real Black Love and other ones as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree with both O and Steve. I think, folks have really looked at this COVID experience as what's really important in life. And I think people realize that life is really short. So they are focused on, how do I get to a place of, if I want to be in a healthy relationship, how does that work? I need to step outside my comfort zone. Maybe I haven't been comfortable with online dating in the past. Now I'm giving it a shot. Or maybe as a woman, I haven't been comfortable with approaching a man. So maybe I slide into his DM. So I think people have become more emboldened, more, open to different avenues of dating, which is really great because, as you get into situations like this, it forces you to grow, right? And growth is really key in a lot of areas, especially when it comes to you and really making sure you're getting out of life what you really want. So, yeah, I agree. Like I said, with both O and Steve.
I've heard, I haven't been on one, but I hear that people are doing Zoom dates and having meals sent to people that they haven't met. And in LA, we definitely have to be really creative, right, Steve? Because it's literally like life or death out here when 1 in 3 people have COVID. Have you heard of any other interesting ways that people are approaching kind of the process of getting to know one another in the midst of, quarantine?
Yeah, I think similar to the Zoom dates, I think FaceTime dating has been a thing. Well, I know I've been on a few FaceTime dates prior to being in a relationship, and so that's one that I've had a lot of fun with. Even before the pandemic started, I've always, tried to kind of just be different in my approach when talking to women. And so FaceTime dating is one that I've used for sure.
So how do you do a FaceTime date other than just having a FaceTime? Do you add any other elements or?
Could. So what I would do, well, I don't want to just give away stuff I would do, but I'll do it. So what I would do, I would
we need to help the people, Steve.
I would send flower emojis. First, I would send flower emojis. And then, depending on where I'm at in the situation with the young lady, I would have flowers visible for her to be able to see it. And so it'd just be something fun and cool to do. We both have a good enjoyment out of it. Something funny and humorous. Takes the pressure off of whether she didn't want to be in person or I didn't want to be in person. It just takes that pressure off.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other ideas? I have been on FaceTime or a video app. I love music and dancing, and that's been one of the toughest things about, quarantine, not being able to kind of get out and enjoy live music and dancing. And, I will definitely support a lot of the online DJs and the dance parties, and have hosted a few. Vance Andrews out of Chicago is one of my favorites. Of course, D Nice, who really just laid the groundwork for everyone to follow, kicking it off in quarantine. Those moments have brought a lot of joy, being able to share that with other people. And then I'll do a little DJing myself and get my music going and dancing on my patio. And so I've done some of that on my FaceTime dates. But so that's a fun way to kind of engage if you can't be together, but still just kind of enjoy one another, enjoy the music in a different way.
Yeah,
I have no shame dancing by myself. Well, at least in quarantine, I would just wait until someone asked. But now it's like, okay, I got to dance all around. I got to get these steps in somehow.
Yeah, I think it's like we said earlier, it's forced us to be creative. I love the fact too with what's going on. It forces us to talk more and have conversations, right? We get deep. We can have a glass of wine, be on video, and still just have, the great conversations that I think in the past may not have always been, for some people at the forefront of the mind, right? I think when you're in person, there may be some distractions physically. Now, all right, well, I can't see you, I can't touch you. So let me just kind of really sit back and really understand where you're coming from, right? And I think that's the foundation of any relationship, is building that connection, that vibe through conversation.
How have you counseled people who are meeting online, but on how to, when it's appropriate to to make that next step to actually meet? And typically there may be one that's more comfortable than the other, and how to respect each other and the timing of that process of that moving from online to in person. what recommendations and what counsel have you provided to some of the people that you've counseled?
So, I think that if not careful, we can get into a space where we begin to overthink things when it comes to love and relationship. And so generally my encouragement to couples and individuals who are seeking love and relationship is to kind of follow the same behaviors and patterns that they've always followed. If you meet someone on Instagram, or you happen to meet them in Clubhouse, I would encourage you just to dialogue with that person and learn where they are in their heart and in their mind with regards to taking things to the next step, which may be going from talking on the phone to actually going to FaceTime, and then perhaps going from FaceTime to meeting, in a public location. It really just has to do with each individual and each couple, and I encourage them to follow whatever steps, follow their hearts in that way, and allow them to get to that place when they feel comfortable.
Yeah. And similar to what I was saying, just to piggyback off of that, it's about the level of communication you guys are willing to have with one another. It doesn't really make sense to be interested in someone and not communicate what you want. And a lot of the times we get in these situations and it's hard for us to communicate that because we may be scared of what the other person might say or do. But it's about being true to yourself and being true to what you want and true to who you are.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, look, we have to go out to the grocery store, right? We have to go places.
Exactly.
There's always people that we're going to be around. Just be mindful of that. Just wear a mask if you feel like you need to go out and you want to meet this person. You can sit apart somewhere. And just use the proper precautions that you're using every day when you do have to go out. But, I agree. I think let's not overthink it. Let's enjoy the conversations. And we both feel like the time is right. Let's just make it happen, and enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, this is about getting to know each other. So let's make the best of it.
I'm glad.
I appreciate that.
I'm glad Vance said enjoy it, because a lot of the times we forget to just have fun.
Yes.
I'm definitely glad he alluded to that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. What I know is in quarantine, I know several people who got married who were not close to getting married at the beginning of quarantine, but got married within quarantine. I'm going to be a virtual bridesmaid on Thursday of next week.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
I mean, and that was something that wasn't in process prior to quarantine. So, yeah, people are getting it in. So, it's really, like you said, this has really forced a lot of people who have not taken the time to slow down and be mindful and really spend time with themselves and really focus on what's really most important to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I have always focused on and have had an opportunity to be, mindful about, and being an entrepreneur, being able to manage my time so that I'm able to manage and have some type of work-life balance. And I chose that lifestyle because of that. But this slowing down that's happened as a result of the pandemic has definitely helped a lot of people. And we have someone going to be joining us as well that we also know from Clubhouse. I'm going to give him a minute to get himself ready. All right. Mawuli, how are you?
I'm so sorry for my tardiness. So I apologize. Family issues. Please forgive me.
You're fine. You're fine. No apologies necessary. We've had a good time so far. So I tell you what. Why don't you introduce yourself, and everyone that's not speaking now that we've got a large group, let's put ourselves on mute. But yeah, tell us where you're from, why this topic, and, real Black love and love, dating, relationships is important to you, and kind of your experience, and then we'll bring you back into the conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. Both parents are from Ghana, West Africa. I was fortunate enough to go to attend and graduate Boston College and Columbia University. I am a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and I consider myself a world citizen. I was fortunate enough to travel to 50 countries. My interest in love and relationships stems from an academic side. When I got my second master's, it was in educational policy and social analysis. But I was, through the grace of God, I was able to stay under Professor Judy Kerensky. Judy Kerensky, she wrote several books. Dr. Judy K. She wrote several books on romance and relationships, and also the program that I was in was actually the program that Dr. Ruth Ann from Columbia University, Dr. Ruth, better known as Dr. Ruth, she actually graduated from Columbia University in that particular program. When I was traveling the world, I had several journals, and I was able to formulate this book, and it's called Life and Love Through the Eyes of Travel. It's on Apple, iBooks, Kindle, BookBaby, Amazon, whatever. And this book is and I call it the Rosetta Stone of Love and Romance. It's a book full of affirmations, 60 affirmations that explore and examine the old question, why is love and marriage not synonymous, and can they coexist? So this is a question that I was trying to answer through traveling to 50 countries. People say I was trying to be a playboy. I wasn't trying to be a playboy, but when you explore these different countries with different women, you tend to get life lessons, and all these life lessons I put in this book in affirmations. And it's something that I think everybody will enjoy if they were single or wake up in the morning and read with their partner, their life partner. But I really want to talk about the question, is love and marriage synonymous? Because once you answer that question, your pathway to either or becomes a little bit more clearer to understand and easier to achieve. So, that's a question I want to ask the brothers, and you as well, yourself, Queen. What do you think about that? Are they synonymous, and can they coexist?
I tell you what, let's table that to a little bit later in the discussion.
Okay.
Because we were kind of on a path and moving there, and then, but no, that's fine. But we definitely want to engage in that, and thank you for lifting that. If you could start off by also telling us your why. Why are you interested in this topic, and why have you chosen to focus on it?
This is a topic that everybody wants to have a life partner. Everybody wants to be a part of something, and that something, in my opinion, is the family. Family is the most important, if not the strongest unit that the world has to offer. It's your family. That's the most basic and strongest unit. From that comes communities. From that comes nations. So the family structure, but you can't have a family if you don't have two individuals that make a conscious effort and a progressive mindset to building something together. So that's very important to me. I think we as individuals need to find that person or persons, depending on whether you're polyamorous or monogamous, but there is a family structure that needs to be, especially with our community, the Black community. We lose out on a lot of things. One of the things we lose out is generational wealth, because we don't have a family structure, because we don't know how to combine two people. So how can we make a nation or a community if we can't have two people get along? So it starts from the basic unit of family and couple.
So we've been talking about kind of dating and relationships, and we'll get into the marriage aspect a little bit later. We've talked about how people have been creative in quarantine as it relates to dating. Can you mute yourself?
Oh, sorry.
Mawuli, thank you.
Okay.
And we'd like to know a little bit about, as it relates to dating, in quarantine. Mawuli, why don't you tell us what you have seen or heard of around how people have been creative in their dating experiences in quarantine?
I've seen many things. A lot of people are not fortunate like me to be able to travel during the quarantine. And I live in New York. It just recently opened up indoor dining 25%. So I've been fortunate to do that. But a lot of people have been forced to get to know their partner on an intimate level, a level where there's no breaks. And that's like being with your partner literally 24 hours a day is a new hurdle that a lot of people are not ready for. And it requires you to be a little bit more engaging, a little bit more how can I say it? Sensually intrusive. You have to ask these questions that you wouldn't ask, because usually you spend 8 hours at work, 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours is left, and you split that between children, if you don't have children, hobbies. Now you have this whole 24 hours in the day to know someone, and it becomes a little bit stressful at times. But I've been seeing people become very creative from becoming better poets, watching movies, having hobbies in regards to planting, taking more walks in the park, these things to get to know their partner. But I've been seeing it not as much. I also been seeing people taking a lot of counseling as well, but different story.
Great, thank you so much. I'm gonna go back around, and we'll just follow around Steve, Vance, Mawuli, and then to O. I would love to get your insight around, this is a topic we talk about on Clubhouse often, around solo dating and multi-dating, and kind of the pros and cons of each for both, men and women. So I'd like for you to share your perspectives on that.
Yeah, I think I don't think one is better than the other. I think it just depends on who the individual is that's wanting to do either one. For me, I was more of a multi-dater. I didn't just put all of my energy into one person until I got to a point where I thought that was in my best interest. But if you want to do either or, by all means, it's your prerogative. But I will say this though, I think it is important to be able to understand what it is you want, regardless of how many people you choose to date, and be honest with yourself. And then once you're honest with yourself, it's easier for you to be honest with whoever you're choosing to date or have in your circle.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with Steve. I think for me, I always tell people, my clients, don't be afraid to be with multiple people dating, right? This is not a commitment. This is a time for you to get to know someone, to get to know who you're compatible with.
Right, that data gathering, right?
Yeah, that's all it is, right? So enjoy the moments, enjoy the company, and really focus in on what is your purpose, right? So if you understand your purpose, that's going to be your roadmap, whether that's a commitment, whether that's marriage long term, and find those people that align to your purpose, right? And then really what's important to you when it comes to relationships. Once you understand those things, then you can kind of maneuver and just interact with different people, because everybody brings something different to the table. One thing that's super important too, that I always tell folks, is before you really focus on being committed, right? If you're trying to date somebody and you say, all right, well, I like this person, I think we have a good vibe, really think about what it is from your past, if anything, that may influence that in a negative way. Right? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to bring that negativity into a new relationship, because then you're creating a cycle all over again. So if there's some things you need to deal with those things first. Once you've dealt with them, go out and explore, have fun. Somebody always says, take the emotion out of dating, save it for the relationship, right? That way you can enjoy it. And there's really, no love lost if it doesn't work out. I have this thing that I always say, like a deck of cards, you're bound to get a couple jokers before you find your king or queen, right? So that couple, from a life perspective, the more, right? So don't get discouraged, be patient, and just enjoy the process.
Absolutely. And I've heard many of you, probably each of you at some point, be a proponent for counseling, as you're, going through relationships, and just like you said, healing that past trauma, because we've all have it. Or have had it in some form or fashion. Just being Black alone, we have it. And we have to deal with that. So thank you for saying that. Oh, why don't you share your perspective?
So, Kelly, I think that what Steve said is completely accurate. I think different people have to figure out what works best for them. When we talk specifically about the pros and the cons, my personal experience, and then my experience in talking with other people, is that for some people, one of the pros in multi-dating is the ability to have a large number of people that they can sift through and they could get to know at more than one time. On the other hand, one of the downsides for some people is that that's a lot for them to remember. Getting to know 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, that's a lot of details to try and remember about people. On the other hand, one of the pros to dating one individual at a time is it allows you, in my opinion, it allows you the ability to really invest in that one person. You can bring your authentic 100% self. Your attention is much less divided. You're not only, you're not just trying to remember 3 or 4 things about 5 people, you know, and remember what you have in your personal life and what you have in your work life, but you're really just trying to remember a few things about one specific person along with all of the other things that are going on in your life. And on the other hand, one of the downsides to dating one particular person is, if not careful, you can spend a lot of time with someone and that relationship not go anywhere, or you can spend a lot of time with that person and discover something amazing happens, but after a short time or after a long period of time, that relationship ends, and you have to start all over again. So it really just depends on what your preference is, what you're most comfortable with, and what your mental bandwidth, if you will, how that works for you.
Thank you. All right, King.
I agree with the brothers. My only thing is that a little pushback. You know, I feel like it's easier for men to date. I think women.
So multi-date or to date?
I think both.
Okay.
Because one, for multi-date, I think women, especially women who are seasoned, who are in their 28 to the 45 years of age, they invest a little bit more emotionally in this when it's dating. They also don't have the liberty to waste any time like we men might do. It might be whether it be societal norms or the biological clock. They can't play with their time, right? So when they date, it takes a little bit more from them, I believe, in my personal opinion. Us men, we can date and we can have kids whenever, right? Also, we since little young men, we know how to handle rejection better. Women, you know, they don't know how to get turned down or led astray. It hits them a little bit harder. So I agree with both of the men. There's pros and cons to dating, having a multiple dating process, and also having a singular dating process. But my only pushback to that is that, what are some of the ways as brothers, what advice can we give the woman to handle the rejection within the dating? Because it is a process, right? Like you said, you're picking out your queen from the deck, like Vance said. So what advice can we give? Because we are solution based to the ladies in regards to that.
Gentlemen, do you want to respond to anything King said?
Yeah, I think first we got to do a much better job of just listening to what our women want. I think a lot of the times let me personalize instead of generalize. A lot of the times I can be so hell bent on what I want that I don't even really care about what she wants. And I think that becomes a part of the real problem. And so once we're able to have that open ear, once we're able to speak life into each other by listening to one another, then I think that's when rejection can be taken a little bit better. And that's when rejection can be accepted more as well. I think you're right. I think rejection is a hard thing. But I do think that us as men do handle it better because we put ourselves out there in a different way than women do.
Yeah, and I would say to piggyback on Steve, what I would suggest for men, the way we can help our women is just to be honest. Be honest about what our intentions are. You know, if you're dating a couple of people, let them know. I think women will respect you more if you give them the choice to make a decision as to whether or not they want to stay in the situation. But if you lie and you lead them on, now you're perpetuating a problem, right? Because now they get hurt. They don't trust men. They have this whole breakdown. They have insecurities when we could have prevented all that in the beginning. And, you know, again, I'm not going to say just men in general. You know, I had to go through that phase as well when I was younger, really just understanding why I feel like I can't be a certain way or say a certain things to women. So if from my perspective as men, if we can just be honest with ourselves and the women that we're dealing with, I think that will help solve a lot of our problems. And really kind of going back to that why Black love, it's really bringing that Black love back together, because now I'm really helping to build you up and preparing you for the future, right? Even if we don't work out, at least we can be friends and you can respect me and you can move on and be with someone else.
Oh, did you have something? If not, in the meantime, there is a comment on this. Jamila Godfrey said she absolutely agrees that multi-dating is difficult for many women, mainly because someone begins to stand ahead of the others. And that is who I would prefer to spend the majority of my time with. So that's what she, and then Marjorie Francois said, perhaps you should pick your queen at a younger age. So there isn't a problem with age. And speaking to age, because you cut off at 45, King, and there are a lot of women over 45 who watch this live stream. So I would love to hear your perspective and the other gentleman's perspective around, how is it different for women over 45?
Well, I would like to answer that. When I said 28 to 45, first, I thought you were in your early 30s. That's what. So I said that for me. That's number one.
Who said I wasn't? I'm saying the viewers.
I love it, King. I love it, King.
Yeah. So what I said that because I'm 40, right, and I do love older women. Actually, a lady I'm dealing with, she's in her 40s. That's not really older, like 50s or 60s, but there's nothing wrong with dating. And plus, their priorities are a little bit different, and their value system is totally different. They might not want a family. They might already have children already. They just probably want a true friendship, right? There's this trilogy or trinity when it comes to relationships. There's romance, friendship, and partnership. So they probably just want, a friendship. They don't really need you to be a partner. They have their business set aside. They don't need you for anything, just a true friendship. So I don't mind that. But I want to have some pushback towards finding your queen at a young age. We all know that women have more emotional intelligence than men. That's number one. They mature faster than men. But I didn't learn how to even deal with women until I was in my 30s. I didn't know how to treat them. I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't know what to do. So it takes a man. I don't think a man can make a fair decision about his partner at a young age, unless he gives that right to his community. And they have people that do that. Their parents or the community or tribe chooses their mate. But if he wants to do it for himself, he should wait a little bit older, when he's financially stable, mentally stable, and spiritually grounded. That's just my opinion.
And I hear you, King, and I know that there's some pushback on that because, there's some, generalizations, and, there's some that can be ready earlier than others. So let's hear from some of the others.
Yeah, I think to add to King's point, me personally, I don't think it has anything to do with age as it has to do with experience, because I'm only 32 and I think my experience has led me to a point where I can understand certain things and I can be able to see certain things from a different perspective because of the experiences that I've had. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I didn't have a good time in my 20s, but that good time has led me to the man I am now. And so I don't think it has anything to do with age more so than it has to do with actual experience.
I stand corrected. Yeah. He's right.
Corrected. Yep. I would agree wholeheartedly. I think about, my experiences growing up. And part of that is self-awareness. I think the biggest thing we miss out on is, who are we? Like, what do we want? Like, why are we doing these things? Until we can figure that out, we're gonna mess up. We're gonna make mistakes, right? And to Steve's point, through those mess ups, those experiences, we grow and we evolve. So now I've almost kind of perfected. I know me. I know what I want. And now the energy I'm projecting is going to attract the woman into my life that is on the same page. If she's not, then I already know I'm not going to waste my time or yours. I'm going to move on to somebody else because I am secure in myself and I know what I want, like I said. So it builds on to that experience. The more you have of it, the better off you are. And I think the more you can really appreciate Black love in a great way.
I'd also like the other guys to speak to the over 45 piece for women over 45. And just to be honest, I am actually 52. And in my conversations with, my friend.
Nicole Murphy? She got that co-working vibe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So among my peers and friends, there's a lot of conversations going on. There are many who are still really holding on to find that true, loving Black love marriage partner and would prefer that. And then there are definitely some on the other end of the spectrum that are saying, you know what? I'm good. I just, like you said, I need a friend, a companion, just, or a life partner. And if I'm going to get married again, like it's got to be really, really, really special because we've been around and we've seen some things and many of us have been married before. But I would love to hear from your perspective, and as you've worked with, women in this age range, kind of what you've seen and heard and what you think works for them.
So I'll jump in really quickly. A couple things have been said that I want to speak to very quickly.
Sure.
One of which is this question of how we can help women navigate rejection better. That was a question that King kind of brought to the light. And I think that my brothers did an outstanding job of answering the question. And I love Steve and Vance's response to this idea of readiness and age among men. But what I will say is this: I think that because sociologically speaking, because the dating experience is changing, I think that culture, society, and the dating experience itself is teaching women how to handle rejection. Because the truth of the matter is, an increasing number of women are dropping their napkin or shooting their shot. And as a result, not all of the brothers, not all of the men that they're reaching out to or expressing interest in are playing games with them. Some of them are saying, you know what? I thank you so much for being bold. I thank you for expressing your interest, but I'm not interested in you at this time. And as a result, women are having to learn how to navigate what it feels like and what it looks like to deal with rejection. To the second part of the question, when it comes to age, I wholeheartedly agree with what my brothers have already said, and that is that it is life's experiences that really prepare a man for marriage and long-term healthy relationship. Unfortunately, as a culture, as a people, we don't create environments and spaces and conversations like this that really help younger generations of people come up with some good nuggets or some good wisdom for how to deal with and how to cultivate healthy relationship. So as a result, we really face a challenge in our community when it comes to love and relationship. But my experience in working with men is there are some men that are ready in their 20s. They have the wherewithal, they have the financial means, they have the support from their community that allows them the ability to really enter into marriage in a way that allows them to be successful. On the other hand, there are some brothers like myself, and I think the brothers that are on the panel tonight, who life's lessons have helped them get ready for love and relationship that is long-term and that is healthy. Lastly, when we talk about women that are over the age of 45 who are still holding on for love and relationship, I really appreciate talking with them because they give me hope and inspiration that love and relationship is still possible and you can still have it. There are varying views and perspectives about this, and I know I'm getting ready to throw a grenade into the conversation. But
go ahead.
There are varying views and perspectives about this, but some men are of the mindset that there simply aren't enough great, viable candidates in the African American community for all Black women to have a great mate. And there is some argument and some contention among statisticians about whether or not that's true. In my perspective and in my opinion, that is in fact true. There are more great, beautiful, amazing, successful Black women than there are viable candidates among African American men. So with that in mind, from that perspective, I would say that I would encourage my sisters to really begin thinking about ways that they can broaden their scope, broaden their net. And if they are dedicated to dating Black men, which I sincerely appreciate, if they are, I would encourage them to consider dating Black men that are perhaps not from the U.S. Because if they expand their dating pool beyond the U.S., then that creates the opportunity and more chances of meeting a good, viable candidate. Otherwise, it might be a good idea to start looking at other races and ethnicities to find love and relationship.
You see, this is why I love O. This is why I love O, because O is he's gonna drop a bomb on you, but he's gonna give you solutions.
Yes.
And
that's why you're all here.
And so what happens is, I'm one of the people. I can't speak for Steve and Vance, but I'm one of the people that agrees with O in regards to there are not enough qualified men to supply the qualified women in America, Black women. You just outnumber us, unfortunately. So, like he says, it's called dating Darwinism. You might have to change the way you go after your partner or expand, the pool in order for you to meet your goal of getting married. Mm-hmm. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, and I agree, King. I think Owen King. Yeah, you're right. Obviously, statistics wise, I think more Black women than Black men. I have talked to women who have had standards that they've have had to adjust, and I'm not talking about the substantial standards, right? So the values, but maybe some of the physical standards, right? I know a lot of women that I've coached had an idea in their mind of what a guy physically should look like. And I'm like, well, you've been trying this over and over again, and you've run into the same results. And we already know what that means, right? So adjust that. Not saying that you want to be with a mud duck, right? You want to be attracted to the person. Right. But maybe there's some things about some guy that, yeah, he's not perfect, but from a personality perspective, you get to know him. He aligns with your values. Maybe to give that a try, right? So to the point, expand your horizons, step outside your comfort zone, and try some things differently. If that doesn't work, then keep it moving, but just don't get stagnant. Don't give up, and really make sure you're mentally focused and you're putting forth the effort. Because at the end of the day, that's all we can control. We can control our ability, right?
Absolutely.
So everything else is outside my control. So I cannot focus on that. I can't worry about it. I got to march and focus on the things that I can actually take care of.
So give me 1 second, King. Yeah. With women accountable, I'm one of them around that. And I just had a conversation with someone about this last night, and it happens probably every week as we're, many of us are online and meeting different people. And, when you're hearing, oh, well, he's a great guy, we really click, but, he's not tall enough. Now, I'm almost 5'10", and I have sisters who are really short saying, oh, well, he's got to be 6 feet this and that. And I'm like, if I can date somebody my height, you can too. That's just one of my, but there are things like that. Oh, I need him to be this or that. And again, some of the bonus qualities, some of the more superficial things. And it's like, but there are many of us who are saying, hey, let's, really look at the person, again, having that attraction, that chemistry, it is really important. But if they're not the ideal in the physical realm, if, their heart and how they treat you and all of that is in alignment, it's like, you've got to give that some time and attention, in my opinion. Now, another thing that I want to address, you talked about women being able to accept rejection better. We'd like to also know what's happening with men and how men can begin to take rejection better, because a lot of women in conversations that I have are very uncomfortable, letting men down and, trying to share how they feel, and if they're not really interested in a way that a man can receive it, because we already know society's beating up on you everywhere you go. We're not trying to beat you down and knock you down either. So, how do we, share that in a way that's more palatable?
So I'll jump in first here. I think, first, let me start by saying, I think my brothers would concur with me when I say that men have been learning how to deal with rejection since they were little boys. A very large number of men in the dating experience have endured rejection or no many times, especially those men who are multiple dating, who date more than one woman at a time. So with that said, I don't know that a very large number of men are having a challenge when it comes to being told no by a woman. But for the brothers out there that may be, and for sisters who are wondering, how do I let him down easy? My encouragement is to be very honest with him and to simply use words that allow him to know that you respect him as a person, but you're just not interested in him in a romantic way. And I think that generally speaking, a level-headed brother can take that and know how to handle it.
King, I know you've been trying to get in there.
Yeah, I think O answered perfectly. I just want to go back just a little bit and talk about how can we men help women navigate the concept of preference and standards, right? Because, you know, the standard thing, like I want somebody to be 5'10", 6 feet taller than me, and then there's preference, right? I think that will help us in the realm of rejection, because it's easy to let someone go when they don't meet your preference, but it's hard to let someone go when they don't meet your standard. You get what I'm saying, fellas?
Absolutely.
So how do we help women to determine what is a preference and what is a standard that's worth fighting for or worth pursuing in the dating realm or the love realm, the Black love realm? So that's the question I want to ask to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, King. I think it's about, I know we alluded to it earlier, it's about being able to step outside. It's like insanity. If you're still wanting the same things over and over and over again, and you're expecting to get different results and you haven't gotten those results, then that's when you have to start to, okay, let me reevaluate exactly what is important to me. Let me reevaluate what I think is important to me. And once you reevaluate it, you begin to understand, like, this isn't as important as I once thought it was. Neither is that, neither is this, but I can focus and hone in on this. And that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, you said it perfectly. It boils down to really understanding what are your relationship values. Like, the values are, again, that's the foundation. So if you have those values clearly established and you really understand what they are, then that will help you make decisions about what's substance, what's superficial, what's not, right? Because now you're being led from a spiritual, internal drive versus something that's, again, physical, something that you're seeing. And that can help you make decisions and keep you kind of grounded in that regard. So again, you got to have those values, and then make sure you also have boundaries, right? So make sure you put those boundaries in place, because boundaries are going to, they kind of go hand in hand with values, right? They're going to keep you in line with your values and keep people from walking all over you, and keep you from just being out there and doing anything, allowing people to do anything to you. So if you can really focus on those two things, I think, allow them to be your guide. It'll make the decisions a lot easier for you and give you a lot more clue about choosing your mate.
So
I like to shift a little bit.
Sure.
Was that, go one, make one more comment, then I'm going to shift, because I wanted to get in and make sure we're covering all the topics. We'll talk a little bit. I want to find out, after you go, a little bit more about kind of what kind of questions have people been coming to you, or what insight have you had about how singles and couples' sex lives have shifted or changed, during quarantine. And then go into the marriage piece. And then, King, we can put your question on the table after we go through a few things in that area. Okay?
Sure.
So go ahead.
Quickly, I think that I do like King's delineating between preferences and standards. And I think that to help couples navigate this idea of what's a preference and what's a preference and what's a standard, I think the question that couples really need to be wrestling with is the thing that I'm seeking to get out of my dating experience something that is core or foundational to a relationship, or is it something that could possibly change either way? So, for example, if you are the kind of person who is saying, you know what, I want a woman or I want a man who is not overweight, who is perhaps a size 35 inches in his waist, or perhaps a size 8 in your dress size. while that is great, that preference is great, the truth of the matter is you could marry any individual and they be that size during the first part of their relationship, but over time that changes. So that's how we know that that's a preference, because we could gain weight at any time. But a standard is something that is more important, and it's pretty structural or foundational to the relationship. So things like trust and honesty and respect are things that are core relationship values and standards that need to exist in order to have a healthy relationship. Kelly, I'll throw it back to you.
No, absolutely. So let's get into a little bit more of the discussion around kind of how either quarantine has affected, singles and couples sex lives, and what you've heard through some of the counseling that you've had and some of the advice you have, to the viewers, and what you believe is good for people to know, and good practices, during, this season that we're in, which seems like it's not going to end anytime soon. So,
yeah. Go ahead. Oh.
So I think that if I'm being completely honest, I think people are having as much sex now as they were before quarantine started. I think that they are much more cautious about it because they have these constant reminders of the need to be safe and to use precautionary measures. So I think that, it's happening more often. One thing I can appreciate in talking to the women who I speak with is many of them are a little bit more reserved and a little bit more cautious. So they're asking more important questions early on. And so that's extremely important. But overall, in my opinion, I think that people are still humping just as they were before they got into quarantine. In fact, I would dare say many people are humping a lot more.
Okay, guys.
And I think it provides a heightened level of intimacy as well, because of course it's the physical act, but then it's what's happening prior to the physical act and then after. And so prior is you're getting to know yourself and you're getting to know the individual on a different level. And it can be spiritual, it can be emotional, but I think that all creates and that all adds value to the actual sex life. And so for me, it's definitely increased and it's improved, and I'm appreciative of that. Hello.
Well, me personally, I think I'm more so focused, and I love sex, but I'm more focused on intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So intimacy, like kind of like what Steve says, is what happens after or the before that leads to the actual sexual act, or what do you do after the sexual act is done? Intimacy is engagement. So now I'm more so worried about waking up and kissing her in the morning, or just rubbing her head when she's going to sleep. More so, I became more intimate during COVID. And I think that's what COVID or the pandemic did for me. Sexual, I never had an issue with being sexual. That's like second nature. But to be intimate, and I think that's what we men have to take this time during the COVID pandemic to learn how to be intimate. And intimacy deals with being truly engaged in your partner.
Yep, King. Amen to that, bro. Intimacy. I'm with you on that. I love intimacy. I think foreplay too. I think about people and times when we weren't in COVID and you're at work. Let's say you send a flirty text, "Be home when I get home." Had this nice negligee or whatever on, and it's going to be on the popping, right? So doing things like that has changed. So I think we have to really kind of focus on how do we continue to make sure foreplay is a part of this conversation as well.
Yes.
Because that's super important, right? Super important.
Definitely.
And it goes with intimacy, right? You want to make sure that the person you're with is feeling valued. You want to make them feel special. And quite frankly, we all enjoy, sex. Most of us enjoy sex. I'll say it that way. Mm-hmm. So if you can continue to do those things, I think those sexual times will be even more heightened, and you'll still be able to enjoy the times that you had even pre-COVID. So yeah, I agree. I think intimacy is huge.
I know that you all are in various discussions with women on relationships, discussions on relationships, sex, etc. And you have the full gamut of, on the spectrum, Christian women and men who are abstaining to others. Are you seeing any changes or differences? What are the Christian singles, men and women? How is the quarantine affecting them at all as it relates to sex, or people making more of a commitment to abstain during this time or less? Have you seen any trends?
So my experience in talking with Christian singles is there really hasn't been much of a change among them. Those individuals who were committed to abstinence before the quarantine, before COVID started, are equally as committed. And I don't think, in my opinion, any of them have become more committed. Likewise, on the other hand, those individuals who identify as Christian, who are single, and struggling with their abstinence or their purity journey, those individuals are still struggling with their abstinence and purity journey, largely because they're stuck inside and they still have connections to other people. So now they're just stuck inside with other people. So they still struggling.
Yes. No, thank you for sharing that. Did anybody else want to chime in on that?
I mean, no, I think O hit it on the head. I think that whatever they were doing before it started, they're still doing it, and vice versa. I think as far as when it comes to religious beliefs and views, I think it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to really understand it unless you're like really engulfed in whatever that person's beliefs are. But yeah, to O's point, I think there's whatever they were doing before, they're doing it. Whatever they're doing after, they're doing it too. They're still doing it.
Have you heard of any really unique questions or advice in that area? Because I know recently there have been some interesting discussions that have popped up. Is there any story or that you want to share that someone came with an issue and you were able to give some advice about?
I'm a little unclear on your question, Kelly. Can you ask it again?
Sure. So I was in the discussions that we have on Clubhouse, I've been hearing some really unique situations, and I'll say this because one thing that we haven't touched on is the different types of relationships, and polyamorous relationships are becoming at least they may have been happening before, but now we've got terms and names and that are surfacing that people haven't heard of. I was just wondering if you had any examples of a question or a situation that was brought to your attention that you thought would be worth sharing that would be beneficial to a broader audience that you've had. And you can think about that if you don't have anything that jumps out right now, whether it's around dating, sex, or as it relates to couples and marriage.
Well, Kelly, so I don't have a particular story, but what I've been realizing since I've been in these rooms, that women are becoming more open to polyamory, polygamous relationship. They're the ones taking the lead and saying, "Hey, I don't want to be with just one man. I don't want to be with one person for my whole life." There are, and there's other women, which I was surprised. I don't mind sharing a man. 10 years ago, you probably never heard a black woman say that.
Right.
Now you have women saying, before it was a secret. Okay, I play the background. I'm the side girl, or I understand, but I love you, but you're married to her. But it's like, okay, I don't mind, as long as you put me first when you're with me. So women are becoming open to that. And I don't know if it's because of the numbers, or I don't know if it's because they don't want to go and look for someone when they already have someone that makes them happy. Even though if that person comes with a partner already. So I don't know.
Interesting. So let me ask you that, because you said you don't really know. I want to open it up to the guys. What do you think is driving that? What do you think is driving women's interest in it? And are you also seeing that same trend that more men are also interested in polyamorous relationships?
Yeah, I think what's driving the interest is I can be a little candid, right? I think I've shared.
Yes, you can. Yes.
I've been in a relationship when I had 2 girlfriends, and I think this was a while ago though, but I think what drives it is the man that they're with not being able to handle it, but being able to understand why that they want it. Because I think what gets missed is the understanding of it. Because it wasn't a relationship that was based on sex at all. It was more so a relationship based on development and understanding what that development looks like for that individual human being. And so that's my stance on it. I think that, and the reason why women are more open to it is because they're beginning to understand that, the reality of it is sometimes when we like somebody, the likelihood of another woman liking that person is fairly high, depending on whatever spaces you're in, and vice versa too.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, man.
Yeah, I guess I would say I've seen it to a lot more women dating multiple guys, and I know we kind of touched on the dating solo versus multiple, but I think back in the day it was almost considered taboo to be out here and be kind of with different guys. You got labeled all kind of garden tools, etc. But I think that stereotype, that putting somebody in that category, it's not even it's not a thing anymore for women. Like they don't care. Like they're like, look, I just want to enjoy life. I want to express myself sexually, especially as women get older, right? Because I think women, as you age, you get more sexual, right? Men were the opposite, right? We start out sexual, and then we, testosterone levels they drop as we get older. So they're more open to exploring and being with different people. And it's not a thing, right? It's not a big taboo thing anymore. So I have seen that a lot in talking to people and being in rooms like Clubhouse and other forums. And you know what? It is what it is. I think, a lot of times we've been brought up, especially if you're like a 70s, 80s baby, to be a certain way. And that's somebody else's opinion. That's somebody else's life. You want to live your life now. You want to do what makes you happy and what makes you feel fulfilled. And if that's it, then go for it, because obviously there's people out here that are on the same page and they're okay with that.
Yes.
So I guess it really boils down to really knowing what you want and being open and honest and not really caring about what other people think, just making sure that you're able to fulfill the needs and desires that you have.
Absolutely. Within one of the rooms, this topic came up around polyamorous relationships. One of the stories and nuggets that was shared is kind of the key to it working is that there's that openness, that transparency that, everyone involved is, is aware, that, there's no secrets or hiding about it, that it's, open and it's accepted by each party, which I thought was different, because that's different than, being, the side chick, or, you're a married man and you've got this wife at home, but yet you have all these female friends and other women that you're entertaining and paying attention to, whether it's sexual or not. But it's that kind of that openness. Would you agree that that's kind of what helps those type of relationships be more successful?
I think Steve is an expert on that more so he could answer that.
Oh,
Steve's expert.
But I think yeah, it's the openness. It's the understanding of what as individuals we want, and then we can come together and put what we want individually in the same pot, so to speak, because it's been
having the guidelines and the boundaries and stuff.
Yeah, it's not like this is something that's just like hasn't been happening. It's happening. Oh, it's happening.
Exactly. And
regardless if people talk about it or not.
Said that in the comments. She said this has been happening. It's just beginning to be spoken about more openly.
People are becoming more comfortable because of the platforms and the spaces, to her point. But it's definitely been happening for sure.
So can I ask a question? So is monogamy more so objectifying your partner or being possessive of your partner? Because I feel like a lot of people feel confined. Not like so they're not in a polyamorous relationship. You can express if you find someone attractive. I believe in a monogamous relationship, there might be some pushback from your partner or some jealousy or some ego. You can't just say what you feel, right?
That's an interesting question. You know,
right.
Most of us were trained, and it was ingrained in us that was the only option, right? Mm-hmm. So we've been programmed to believe that that's what we should marriage. You know, just marriage. That was the only option for a lot of people, especially if you were raised in the church. So, you know, now that things are becoming more open, and as we're becoming more, you know, well-traveled and seeing how people live in other parts of the world, we're being exposed to other cultures and lifestyles, and you know, and things are changing, and people's mindsets and are changing, and especially as, you know, as you said, as you get older and you see you're not living the life that you always thought and kind of planned and envisioned for yourself. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to have that, then what am I going to have? What do I want? You know, outside of what I've been programmed to want to believe was the only option that I have. What do I want for myself? I believe a lot of people are beginning to ask themselves those questions.
And yeah, and just because you may want something right now doesn't mean you're going to want that a week from now. And so I think there's a certain level of inspiration I get from people that can really communicate what they want right now. Because just because I want this right now doesn't mean I'm going to want it a week from now. And when I don't want it, I will communicate that to you. And I think that's what gets lost, because a lot of the times we're able to want something in the moment, but then we become afraid to communicate it when we don't want it anymore.
Yeah, and I love that, Steve. I think a lot of people can't separate sex from love, too, right? There's a difference, right? Sex is an act, love is a little bit deeper. So I think what you have to really be comfortable with is where you are and what you want, right? A lot of times what may happen is people get emotionally connected and involved. They say, yep, I can do this. I can just have this relationship. And now all of a sudden, you know, you're 2-3 sessions in, and now you're starting to develop feelings. So to Steve's point, you got to really know, hey, I can handle this because I am getting emotionally attached to this person. And there's nothing good going to come out of that but heartache. So let me step back and really figure out what it is that I need to do. From a monogamy perspective, you know, to King's question, I think, it's a bit of selfishness. I wouldn't say selfishness, but I just think it's a spiritual bond. And I think people hold that spiritual bond of being with one person, intimate, mentally, physically, and spiritually, as sacred. And they're like, look, I can't deal with you being with somebody else because I'm too attached to you in that regard. So therefore, I am going to be selfish because I'm giving you all of me. I expect the same from you. Now, if you want to go out and be with someone else, let me know, and I will see myself out of this relationship, because that's not where I am. Right. So I think there is a bit of selfishness, but I think it's justified because that's kind of where I am in my life. And that's really what I want.
I have a question. As you talked about that emotional attachment, and typically that's assigned to a trait of a woman, that, you know, we can't really separate, you know, emotion from, you know, sex and love, you know, that if we are engaged in sex, that the emotion and that attachment comes. What are some tips, whether for men or women, how, if you are trying to venture off and engage in, you know, more casual relationships or friends with benefits or whatever, where you don't get that emotional attachment that ends up hurting you in the process, as you're, you know, trying to kind of explore what works for you at a different phase in your life?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that there's always going to be some level of emotional attachment, regardless of if it's on a grand scale or a smaller scale. It's just that I think that a lot of the times as men, for me personally, a lot of time for me, I was able to ignore it. And not saying that was good or bad, but I was just really able to ignore it because of the things that I wanted to do with other people. But I think there's always going to be some level of attachment, regardless if it's on a grand scale or a smaller scale, 100% for sure.
So for men too?
I think so. for me personally, I can say that I can speak for all men.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to generalize certain things, but personally, for me, there were always some type of emotional connection to anyone I've ever been with, for sure.
Always.
Any others?
Always emotional connection. I always have some type of sexual ties, spiritual ties, mental ties with any woman I dealt with. But the ones that I stayed with were the ones that provide added value.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those are the ones that I stayed with the longest. The ones that I stayed with the longest, and they they add value to my life, they were considered toxic because I was given too much. So for me, it's more so having a symbiotic relationship and trying to stay away from the parasitic relationship. And when I say symbiotic, I'm referring to being equally sharing. And it doesn't have to be same finances. You know, she could be richer than me, and I could be more spiritually inclined, right? Or vice versa. And I think we as a community within the conversation of Black love, we should stop being as rigid when it comes to these different symbiotic relationships. For example, I'm not I don't practice Islam, but most of my friends do, and they will tell you that the Prophet Muhammad's first wife was richer than him, way more money than him, but she loved his spiritual acumen, right? So it's like we have to see other things, have other value systems, and sometimes it might not match, but that person might be able to give you added value to life or something else. Like the lady I'm with now, like I said, she's teaching me or reteaching me, because I knew it before, but she's reteaching me intimacy. You know, and that's valuable. You know, so I might buy her something expensive, or do something extravagant, but she might teach me how to hold her hands. To me, that's equal value. I'm learning.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Stephen King. For me, I'm not that type of guy, right? I can't just, have sex with someone and then cut them off and just never talk to them again, right? That's just not how I'm built. Now, I will say that there have been situations where it was a sexual thing, and that's what it was. See you. Hey, how you doing? Keep it moving, right? Because to King's point, for me, it's about growth. Are you able to help me to grow? Can I help you to grow, right? So that's the foundation. That's what's really going to make the emotional tie a little bit stronger. But for someone looking to be in a casual relationship, you got to keep it super casual. You can't do the thing. You can't date somebody you're just having sex with. You just, because the more time you spend with somebody, the more you will get attached to them, the more emotions that'll come out of it. And now you're having sex as well. You're in a relationship, basically, and you're on that path. So you really have to be mindful and be able to separate what you're doing physically from the connection you're having on an emotional/spiritual level, right? And that's really the bottom line. It sounds kind of harsh, but it's reality. If you want to be in that, then you got to really play the game and stay in your lane, because otherwise it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I'll jump in really quickly to say this, a couple of things. The first thing is I agree with statements that were made earlier by King. I think that we are living in a culture and society where increasingly women are opening up to dating more than one person at a time, which is new, and B, they are also increasingly more interested in polygamous relationships. To some of the more recent questions, I do not subscribe to polygamous relationships, and I don't encourage multiple sex partners while multiple dating. I think that there are a number of issues within our community that speak to reasons why we shouldn't do that. I think that if there is an issue within your relationship, with your monogamous relationship, whereby you don't feel like you can communicate your attraction, or you can't communicate your ability to recognize that someone else is beautiful, I think that people should work on that, as opposed to opening themselves up to having more than one partner in their relationship, because that speaks to an issue of communication, which will not go away when you start dating more than one person at a time.
Right.
Lastly, I think Steve said something that I think is true, and I agree with it. But I think that as people, we really need to work more diligently on having healthy monogamous relationships. I think when we date with multiple partners, and we have sex with multiple partners, we teach ourselves, we give our bodies and our minds an appetite for that. And so then when we find ourselves in situations where we're single and we really, in our heart of hearts, just long for one person, it makes it extremely difficult to do that, because in our minds and in our hearts and in our spirits, we have taught ourselves to desire, to have a drive for more than one person's capacity to meet the need. Also, I think that it is also problematic from a mental health perspective, because sex is so powerful. I like to share with couples and singles alike that sex is a healing salve that God created to help married people stay together. And so
yes, I've heard you say that. Say that again, oh.
Sex is a healing salve that God created to help married people stay together. And so when we use this ointment or this salve outside of the confines of marriage, we find ourselves stuck to, clinging to, or attached to people when they're long gone. The problem with that becomes you find yourself in new relationships thinking about the other person, or you find yourself in single spaces and you can still smell the odor or the fragrance of that person after they're long gone. Or from a mental health perspective, you find yourself still longing for something that that person used to do for you when they're no longer around. So in my opinion, I think that it is true what my brothers have mentioned. There are ways to do it, but I think that if we're going to have a healthy mental health, and if we're going to have healthy, lasting relationships in the future, we need to be mindful of feeding ourselves spirits and feeding ourselves appetites for things that we can't sustain and the people in our community can't sustain. One final thought, I think that when we develop this habit of multiple dating and multiple sex partners, we put ourselves in a situation whereby we have what some people identify as soul ties. And so we're in these relationships, and new people come along and we feel reluctancy about fully investing in and delving deeper into the relationship that we have, because that person has come back up or that person has resurfaced. But when we are maintaining a lifestyle of abstinence until we meet someone, or maintaining a lifestyle of monogamy with just one person, it makes things like that much easier. So, I, to each their own. I recognize that sociologically speaking, things are changing and we are evolving as a people. But I think that there are a number of things that make a healthy monogamous relationship difficult long-term, farther down the line.
Okay, so pushback, because I know Steve is making faces, so he has some. But I just want to ask one thing to O, because me and him share one theory, which is there's not enough qualified men to supply qualified black men to supply qualified black women. So if we do not entertain polyamory or polygamy, so are you willing to accept that some black women won't ever be married or have a partner based on your you being an advocate for monogamy?
Sure. And I spoke to that earlier. I think that that is a reality that many black women have faced, are facing, and will continue to face as the generations progress. I think that the truth of the matter is there are a large number of black women in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that also went without having a loving relationship. And so because of that, it's a reality that we are forced to accept, particularly if you are a woman who embraces monogamy. And I being a man who embraces monogamy, that's what I think. I think that that's a reality we all have to accept.
Yeah, I think I definitely do appreciate that perspective you shared, for sure. I think at one point, I'm not going to say I shared the same perspective, but I do think that it's easy for us to ignore and suppress certain desires we have as human beings. And I think that when we start talking about the desires we have, I've just chosen to be more honest about the desires I personally have. And so in the process of being open about those desires, I think it's important to be able to acknowledge and highlight that there's always going to be two sides of everything. There's always going to be pros and cons to everything, right? And in the midst of acknowledging those pros and cons, in someone's perspective, one of those pros may be highlighted more than the con is. But I think that when you start, because I think we focus on the sexual aspect of polyamorous relationships and ignore the other aspects of it. And so we're always going to have soul ties, because I don't think you've only had sex with one person in your whole life. Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think that goes to perspective. I think that soul ties can be broken. So while it is true that I have, since we put me on blast and telling my business in these good COVID streets, while it is true that I have, the truth of the matter is I believe that soul ties can be broken.
Okay.
So can you give us a little lecture on that?
Let's talk about that. That's a very good. I'm glad that you just said that.
Well, I think that, soul ties come from a spiritual connection that is made during an intimate act, such as sex. And I believe from a Christian perspective that you can pray about those things and have those things broken. And I believe that you can build relationships and set habits that allow you the ability to break those connections and move forward with them from a biblical perspective.
Fair enough. That's fair. I won't say if I subscribe or don't subscribe to that perspective, but it's fair. I think when my definition of a soul tie, it goes further. It goes much beyond just the sexual part of whatever two people share. I think that once I become intimate with the person, regardless of what capacity it's in, I think that level of emotion, that level of intimacy is something that can't be taken back. You can't take it back. So when we start talking about the soul ties, I don't think it's something that can be taken back. And so if I've given myself to someone, if they've given themselves to me in that way, I think that's something that's always going to be there, regardless of if you pray it away, regardless of however you decide to speak on it, it's there. Now, some of us can suppress it much better than others, but it's always going to be there, regardless of what capacity it's in my personal opinion.
Wait, can I ask you a question? And Kelly, because y'all been, I see what they're on both their opposite ends of the spectrum in regards to this particular issue. Kelly and Vance, where do you stand in the fact that are you willing to allow or willing to acknowledge that if we are supposed to be in a monogamous relationship in the Black community, are you willing to accept that some women won't have a partner?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I actually really started hearing it, not only, women having conversations amongst ourselves, but I actually did start hearing some pastors beginning to say, hey, everyone's, not going to be married. We're praying for this husband and, being trained to, want this. But I was really appreciative the first time, it was actually said from the pulpit that, no matter how hard you pray, no matter how much you have it going on, whatever, everyone is not going to be married ever or remarry those who aspire to remarry. And so that's why I think it's so important that, women, Christian or not, you really look at, okay, well, if marriage was the goal, and that's what I thought I wanted, what I was trained, programmed to believe that I should have, and that's the only option. And when, as you're aging and growing and evolving, and you're like, okay, this marriage thing isn't happening yet, and it may not happen at all. So how can I live a fully self-actualized life if marriage is not in the picture for me? And so I think I've started asking myself that question about 5 years ago. I've encouraged my friends and people within my sphere of influence to begin thinking about that and entertaining that as well, and what works and what doesn't work. We don't want to give up hope that we won't be, but at the same time, you have to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally that could be your reality. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to have, this conversation, to bring some of these things to light, because we just don't know. I have seen love happen. My next door neighbor, where I grew up in Chicago, my family's lived in that condo for over 50 years. They signed the mortgage the day I was born. Our next door neighbor found love in her late 70s, early 80s. I've seen it happen. Matter of fact, one of my play moms, she's my mom's age, just found love last year. So I've seen it happen, even, when you get to your, mid to late 70s, 80s. I just keep saying, Lord, please don't make me wait that long, whether we get married or not. But can I please experience some real Black love before 78? Can I get it in my 50s now? I've been patient and waiting.
So Kelly, let me just say this
Yeah.
really quickly. I think it's important to keep in mind that if love is the goal, if companionship is the goal, then people can have that outside of dating a Black man. And so, you know, the
It's
truth
true.
is possible.
I just want to hear Vance.
And I would say this: what rule? Can you show me a rule or a law that says everybody is supposed to get married, or everybody is supposed to have a kid, or there's no rule. There's no set thing that says, this is guaranteed. Like people don't live their purpose in life. People don't, they live in poverty, right? That's just life, and life happens to all of us, right? So I think we have to realize that. And I think we have to really walk in life and say, look, I can't control that. I can do what I can do in my own sphere and work towards it and pray about it. And if it happens, great. If not, you know what? I got to keep moving, because my life, maybe it just wasn't designed for me to be in a situation where I'm married or having kids or falling in love or what have you. When we focus on those things, when we focus on what we don't have, then we miss out on the joys of what we do have. And that's absolutely right. We got to be thankful for what we do have and march in that direction. Otherwise, we're going to just be miserable, negative people, hating on other people that got love and dissing people that got kids. And that's counterproductive, right? If we're trying to grow as a people, as Black men and women, we got to really respect each other and what we're doing, and really just appreciate, like I said, those things in life that really come to us and enjoy them.
And Vance, you mentioned the key word, purpose. Now, this is one of the questions I've asked in the rooms that you've been in, and it's, can men really be prepared to be in that long-term loving relationship if they don't know or understand or are walking in their purpose? That was some advice that I was given a while ago as a way to measure whether or not a man was ready, and would love to hear your perspective on that. So, and for women too, do women need to be clear and know about their purpose before they can?
Here's what I'm going to say. So first, let me start by saying this conversation has been amazing. I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the conversation. I am going to need to step away from you all very soon. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly, for hosting this amazing conversation. And I hope that we get to have it again.
We will continue. I was actually going to start to wind it down, but the more we talk, the more questions keep coming. But we are going to wind it down, and we will find another date to continue.
Excellent.
So thank you. But go ahead. And then.
So my thought on this very quickly is, I think that it is possible for a man to be in a relationship that is long-term and he not have walked into or found his purpose. However, in my personal experience and the journey that I'm in currently, and in my experience and studying love and relationship, a lot of times when a man does that, when he gets into a relationship before he's discovered his purpose, he's extremely unhappy. And that unhappiness bleeds into his behavior and his attitude and his approach in doing family life. I really believe, I don't have any statistical data to support it, but I really believe that one of the reasons why we saw men, particularly in the African-American community, who were oftentimes great providers, but oftentimes very mean or very angry, or they were alcoholics, or they were abusive, is because that sense of purpose, that sense of fulfillment was lost. And they gave that up for the sake of doing whatever it took to take care of their family. So is it possible? Yes. Is it advisable? I'm not, I wouldn't encourage it. I think that people should pursue their purpose first. And in pursuing purpose, I believe that God will give us clarity on whether or not the person that we've met can align with our purpose. I don't believe God creates soulmates. I believe he creates people for purpose. And when we discover our purpose, he aligns us and gives us the wisdom to know who can align with our purpose so we can accomplish our mission.
I appreciate that and agree. Before, I know that you're going to be leaving soon, so here's what we're going to do. I want the other gentlemen to comment on that. But we're going to allow O an opportunity to give some kind of final closing comments and make sure that we all know how to plug into him and get his book as well.
Well, again, let me just say this conversation has been amazing. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share. When you first hit me up, I was really nervous, but as the emails kept coming, I said, oh no, this lady is serious. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for it. Once again, my name is Lamonte Roberson. I am a trained mental health professional and a published author of one book entitled Love Nuggets. It's a 31-day journey for couples and singles alike. And it's really just designed to help couples and help singles begin thinking about, talking about, and processing important topics related to love and relationship, like finance, forgiveness, and the importance of a healthy community. You can find me on social media at OLR Speaks. Again, OLR Speaks with the @ symbol in front of it. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and along with Clubhouse. And you can purchase my book, Love Nuggets. You can purchase it on Amazon, or you can reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to send you a signed copy of it. Thanks, Kelly, for this opportunity.
No, thank you so much. Oh, look forward to seeing you on Clubhouse, and we'll start brainstorming the next follow-up session, because like I said, this definitely needs to be a series, and we're going to get some more of the other brothers who were planning to join us here as well.
Let's do it. I'm going to ride this train until my phone dies. When my phone dies, I'm going to rush to my other meeting right afterwards.
Okay. Well, thank you, O.
And I want to apologize because I came in late because tardiness, but I also have to leave. I have a date night with my lady. So
well, that's right.
I don't want to get in trouble. So and I won't get in trouble because she's understanding. But I want to say thank you, Kelly. This was necessary. Right, this was necessary, and I hope and pray that this catches on and your platform catches on, because this is what the people need. They need someone who's going to be able to moderate and make sure we can have different perspectives in the room that might not necessarily agree, but can eloquently and peacefully say what they feel and what they definitely believe in. And I love it. But before I go, once again, this is Mawuli Hormeku. My book is Love and Life Through the Eyes of Travel. It's on Amazon, Apple iBooks, Kindle, every platform you could think about. Please get this book if you're interested in love and travel. And also, it helps you understand the difference between love and marriage. Love is irrational, illogical. Love can mean anything, but when you talk about marriage, that's a partnership, and it's gonna and you have to really be purposeful and intentional with marriage. You just can't marry anybody. You can love somebody and not marry them, but you can marry somebody you don't love. So it gets really messy if you don't know, if you haven't defined it. So this book will help you define this. The way this book works, you can read my stories of travel, but also you could wake up one day, pick a number from 1 to 60. And read an affirmation that pertains to you and your life.
And King, we are going to continue the conversation with that question. We were working to get to that marriage part.
Wow.
We'll continue. And so you make sure you email me or send that question to me, and I'll make sure it's added to the next program outline. Okay.
Definitely. I would like to be there. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you so much. All right, Steve, Vance, do you have some closing comments and want to respond to that, that last comment, or that last topic that we were discussing?
Yeah, I definitely do agree with O in regards to purpose, for sure. I think that for me personally, when my wants started to really mirror my needs, that's when I became a different human being, a different man specifically. And so when my purpose began to really exude with the way I talk and the way that I walk, so to say, certain things started to align more quickly than I ever thought that they would. And so I definitely want to just reiterate the wants versus needs. And when they started to mirror, that's when I began to get different results with how I treated women and how I treated myself, more importantly. It all aligned for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with O and Steve. I know a good woman. If you're a man and you're not in your purpose and you have a good woman in your life, she can help you find that purpose. She can help you bring that purpose to life. And, at the end of the day, a lot of men want somebody who's going to have their back, who's going to support their growth. If you can support my growth, then yeah, I mean, that's love right there. Because again, we're all human. We make mistakes and we want to aspire and grow, and we need help, quite honestly. And who better to have your help, be your helpmate than the woman that you love and you're with. So yeah, purpose is definitely for a man is key. I have been on a spiritual journey for years now, in terms of just meditation, reading, and really through that quiet time, I've been able to find purpose. Before it was a lot of distractions, it was, oh, I got a great job, making good money. Oh, I got this opportunity over here. But every opportunity is not a good opportunity, right? That's where knowing your purpose can guide you and keep you on that straight and narrow path. So I think for men, purpose is definitely something that we have to have and find and live at some point in life, because that's part of your legacy. So I agree with Steve. And, I think once you can get to that place in life, you will find that you will attract those people into your life that will help you to grow, right? That's the secret, right? You attract and manifest those things that you focus on the most. And that really comes from really understanding who you are and what your purpose is in life.
Absolutely. So would love to give all of you an opportunity to just share some closing comments, some nuggets, some, whatever you'd like to share in closing, and then we will continue and pick up with some of the additional questions that we were planning to discuss tonight as well. Oh, why don't you start with us, since you've got a dash sooner.
So one of the things I like to share with every community, every space I go into, is the importance of having good community. If you or someone is longing for a healthy relationship, I would encourage you to be thinking, praying, and processing with your community about 3 different types of people. The first person is someone who is exactly where you are. If you are, let's say you're in the 5th year of your marriage, having someone who is also in the 4th or 5th year of their marriage can be extremely, extremely helpful. You all do me a favor, ask me why.
Why?
Because the first person, that person that is exactly where you are, can identify with what you're going through on a day-to-day basis. They themselves are in the same place. They're probably facing a number of the same challenges, and misery loves company. So it's good to have someone whose shoulder you can lean on when things are getting difficult, and when you want another couple you want to hang out with. The second person is someone who is much further along than you are. So if we just build on this example, if you are in the 5th year of your marriage, you want to be around someone, and you want someone in your community and in your circle who is at the 10 and the 15-year mark in their marriage. And the reason why, please do me a favor, ask me why.
Why?
Because that person allows you to have someone whose feet you can sit at and glean from. That person allows you to have someone who you can say, you know what, I'm about to hit this joker with my car. He's getting on my nerves. And that person can say, listen, you might not want to do that. Here are some things that I did. Here are some tools that I use. Here are some resources that I have that can help you make it to the 10 and 15-year mark the same way I did. The third person is someone who is trying to get to where you are, okay? This person is equally, if not more important. And the reason that this person is perhaps more important is because this person will break the issue in our community that we have, where we are not seeing generational love and marriage continue from one generation to the next. But this person is also very important for some other reasons. Ask me why.
Why? Because
this person puts purpose behind your pain. This person allows you the ability to say, you know what? I went through the last 2 or 3 years of trouble in my marriage for you, so that I could say to you, I've been where you are. I've cried the tears that you cried. I've fallen in the pit holes that you're falling in. Here's what I did, and here's how you can make it. Get up from where you are. Stop crying. You're going to be okay. And so having those 3 types of people are extremely vital to your success in your marriage and in your relationships in general. So that's the little bit of love and wisdom that I have to offer you. And that's also in the book Love Nuggets. So if you get the copy, you'll get the information.
I have got to get my copy. And I just want to say this to you before you leave, and to all of you. I honor you. I celebrate you. I respect you. And that's why you're here. I thank you for not just what you shared and being generous with your time with me and my viewers here today, but every night on Clubhouse, you're in someone's room talking about these things. And that's a sacrifice. And I appreciate your sacrifice and your selflessness to help others, men and women, as we're navigating these very challenging times. And so I thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing to partner with each of you. And I know that, it's all about impacting lives and changing lives. I know you're committed to it. And I'm so glad that we've connected, and there's a lot more to come. So thank you so much. And God bless you all. So, if you need, just leave when you need to leave, and we'll let Steve and Vance give, their closing comments, and make sure everyone knows how to reach them. And I want to hear about their books and coming books and services as well.
So I'll go ahead. So again, Kelly, thank you for this platform. It's been amazing. I always learn something new anytime I'm in platforms like this, and that's the beauty of it. That's why I like being here, because, I take these nuggets and I regurgitate them, and I use them to help other people as they're growing as well. My biggest thing has always been about self-awareness, right? And I always tell people, all my clients that are looking to date and be in relationships, I says, conscious dating requires an awareness of self, right? So if you don't know who you are, if you are broken, then you can't expect to be in a healthy situation going forward. So while you're in this period of not being with anyone or in a committed relationship, take the time to get to know who you are and what you want. 5 things I always say. Number 1, if you're trying to date, what is your purpose? Right? Do you want to be in a committed relationship? Do you want to just have a friend with benefit? Whatever it is, define that. The second thing is, what is it that's most important to you in relationships, right? Is it trust? Is it honesty? Do you need somebody who's spiritual? Write those things down. I don't care if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. Write it down so that you know foundationally what it is that you want and what type of relationship you want to be in. The third thing is, what characteristics do you look for in your ideal mate? Everything, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Write it all down and rank them in order of importance to you. Fourth, what are those boundaries? You got to have boundaries, right? Boundaries protect us, like I said earlier. And then finally, if there is anything from your past that's going to impact you in dating in your future, you got to resolve that. Because again, you're going to take that with you, and that's not fair to the person you're with, because you're going to hold them accountable for something somebody else did. And then it's just not a healthy situation. So many times we are either focused on the past, which is causing stress, depression, a whole bunch of negativity, or we're too focused on the future. I want this husband and the kids and the house, and you miss the present, right? So you miss the joy and the excitement of just living in these moments, because that's all we really have is these moments, right? So if you can learn to enjoy those moments, then you're not as focused on past and future. You're not creating that stress, that anxiety, that worry, that depression. You're just living your life. And then you're able to focus on those things that you control. Next thing you know, you will begin to attract the same type of people into your life. And that's what it's all about. It's about the energy that you put out. It's about your thought process, and it's about the effort, right? Also, if you're dating, you're trying to date, you got to be exposed. You got to understand what opportunities are out there for me to meet people. So if you are having a phobia of online dating, step outside that phobia. Step outside that comfort zone. Ask yourself why. Give it a try, right? Now you're able to position yourself to be exposed, to have opportunities for people to see you, to read your bios, etc. Pop up in somebody's DM. hey, you know, I saw something on your feed, your post.
That's a whole. If people who are new to Clubhouse, if you haven't been on Instagram, that's what the whole thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that was the only way I could get to you guys. I'm like, hello, I
Yeah.
invite you to a live stream.
And I'm like, who's this Kelly? Oh, she wants to do this. Okay, yeah. So again, I love that fact. You're not afraid to step outside your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just say that, you know, don't give up on love. Your story is still being written, right? There's chapters in life, just like there's chapters in books. So don't close the door. Keep moving in your purpose and staying present, and maybe things will open up for you. So you can reach me on social media at Advance to Grow. I am a certified life and relationship coach. I do have a podcast as well called Between Love and Hate, where we talk about relationship topics. And again, I help men and women deal with situations where they are trying to find that special someone, but they're not sure how. Maybe they're dealing with some stuff from the past and they can't move forward. So let's take it from where you are now and let's get you to that place that you want to be. So thanks again.
Now, do you do matchmaking too? Did I see that?
I don't do matchmaking. No.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Joseph.
Okay. I thought I saw. Okay, but yes, yeah. I tried to get them, but they have some, you know, commitments that are preventing them from doing some other things right now. So yeah. Would love to have Joseph and Paris on from Real Black Love.
Yep. So thank you again.
No, thank you so much, Vance. I really appreciate you. And where can we find your podcast? It's
betweenloveandhate.podbean.com.
Okay.
Yeah, we have about 38 episodes out there. You can go back. And like I said, we talk about everything from sex to dating to marriage to being single, all of it. All of it's fair game.
And I'm just looking, you have one of my favorite paintings behind you.
Yeah.
Yes,
My mom gave that to me for Christmas maybe 11 years ago. And she's has since passed. So, you know, this really right here is a special piece of artwork for me. It symbolizes so much about
absolutely.
So, yeah.
Isn't that the he ain't heavy?
He ain't heavy.
Yes.
Let's reach down to help each other out.
Absolutely. I love it and live by that. Thank you so much.
Thank
Steve?
you, Kelly.
Yeah, I gotta follow that. Thanks, Vance. I'll keep it nice and sweet. I think we all should just fall in love with ourselves as individuals. Yeah. The person you see in the mirror, be kind to that person every day. The person you see in the mirror, love that person every day. Respect that person every day. I think everything starts with us as individuals. And then once we begin to internalize and understand how powerful we are as individuals, then you can begin to exude that in your loved ones. So my mom used to always tell me, shine your light, Steve. And so I used to be real hesitant on even like doing that or even understanding the concept. But as I've gotten older, I'm gonna shine this light and I'm gonna be very unapologetic about it. And I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna treat people the way I treat myself. And I don't think I can ever lose with that. And I don't envision myself losing with that. It's been working great so far. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my loved one. Her name is Kanae. She's an absolutely wonderful soul. She's taught me a lot about myself, things that I had no idea about. She's brought things out of me, and vice versa. And I think that's what life's about. I think life is about inspiring people and being inspired by people. And so these are things that I live by. Again, I always encourage to just love your loved ones and let them love you. Let people love you. And regardless of what your idea of love is, let people love you and appreciate it. I think a lot of the times we lose sight of appreciation and what appreciation looks like and feels like. So give that and receive that, and we'll all be in a better space. And as far as where you can reach me, on Instagram is S_Rob at 11, S_Rob on Instagram. I also have a podcast with my good brother Shahid where we talk about a lot of things Vance talks about on his podcast. It's called Everybody's Right. And he and I, we have our disagreements on perspective, but it's definitely a good thing to listen to in case you're bored or just want something to do. Everybody's Right on Instagram, Everybody's Right podcast on YouTube. We have about 20 episodes, I want to say, 15 to 20 episodes. And so you can definitely tune in and check us out. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as well. And so that's all I have for me. And also follow me on Clubhouse as well, S_Rob 11.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now, this is a first. I told you when we were in the green room that all kind of technical issues has happened. So in the past, someone pulled our fire alarm. So I am going to close the show abruptly, but thank you so, so much. And we will reconvene real soon. Take care. God bless you. And thank you all.
All right. Take care.